All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of HypurrSpace. It's been a while. So, my name is Chris from Spacebar, and we are one of the main contributors to the HyperCourier Validator.
And I'm Jerry from HyperKorea.
All right. So, this week, we're diving deep into one of the hottest topics in the ecosystem right now. I mean, it's been the hottest since it came out. So, we'll be talking about the explosive growth of HIP-3 and the competitive landscape that's emerging around it. Now, let's rewind a bit. So when HIP3 first came out, when it first launched, and platforms like Trade.xyz and Felix started kind of rolling out their index, their equity perps, I think there were two sides. There were the bullish and the bearish sides within the community. On the bullish side, you had people saying like, "Oh wow, this is revolutionary, 24/7 trading stocks, and this is the future." But then on the other hand, we had the bears, who were the skeptics, who pointed out the concern that, like, what would happen if the stock market closes? What if the price oracles stop? Like, there that could create big risks. And then there were also the funding problems. So in the early days, I think the funding rates were like absolutely brutal. We're talking about like 100% or even higher. So people were asking like, why would I even trade these since they are low volatility, and funding rates are so high? But then one thing that we have to point out is that I think the ecosystem has adapted. So the HIP3 deployers can actually customize their funding rates, and with deeper liquidity coming in, these markets have stabilized significantly. I mean, although um, heavy assets like Nvidia can still go up to 30%. I think that's better than before. Most assets right now in like trade.xyz, you can go see it, now has like a base funding fee of around only 5%.
Interesting. So if funding rates were so high and there were Oracle issues, why is everyone suddenly using HIP-3 now?
Good question. So, see, here's how it gets interesting. So, while crypto, like including Bitcoin and ETH, we've actually been struggling with weak price action because the traditional assets, like the US indices, stocks, gold, silver, they're hitting all-time highs right now. And the liquidity isn't just flowing into crypto. But if you think about it, that's why I think HIP3 is having its moment. So if you're on Hyperliquid and you want exposure to these hot traditional assets, you can actually go to one of the HIP3 markets and go buy them right there. Actually, right now, the HIP3 volume and open interest are at all-time highs.
Yeah, right.
And one thing I want to point out also is that the beautiful part of the Hyperliquid ecosystem is that every new HIP3 deployer has to stake 500K hype
Mhm.
and give 50% of their fees back to Hyperliquid. I
Right.
mean, the staking 500K hype could be a burden, but then the simple stake and deploy part of it is just very easy. So that means the new demand for hype and increased buybacks actually positively influence the community. So even in this tough market, we're seeing like average daily buybacks of $2.3 million dollars. I think that's really significant.
Mhm. 500K hype staking and 50% fees back to Hyperliquid benefits both sides. I think that's why many builders are making new HIP-3 markets.
Yeah, yeah. So since you mentioned it, going to the new players that are coming in. So we already have the established players. I think people already know them a lot. Trade.xyz, Felix, Eventuals, and Hyena. And for the newcomers, we have Markets and Dreamcash. So first for markets is from the Kinetic team. They're not really focused on a single category. They're kind of onboarding everything from S&P 500, Tesla, oil, and even like US treasuries. So And one thing is they're doing differently, I think, is that they're using USDH as collateral, which means that they're fully aligned with Hyperliquid since 50% of USDH reserve revenue flows back to the protocol. And I
Hmm.
think the traders are loving the deep liquidity that's happening there.
Yeah, for sure.
On the other hand, there's Dream Cash, and unlike markets, they're using USDT as collateral. So you can guess that they've partnered up with Tether and
Yeah.
also Selene. So
Hmm.
now you can trade the highest volume assets like S&P 500, Nvidia, and Tesla using USDT. Again, the deep liquidity, I think the users are loving it, and the market is kind of responding positively to this. But then, as the new players are coming in, what would this kind of trigger? With all these new markets comes a new challenge, right? Liquidity fragmentation.
Yeah.
The competition keeps heating up. So here's the thing about perps markets. You need three things. One, an oracle. Two, liquidity. And three, a trading engine.
Hmm.
So for the trading engine, the Hyperliquid HIP-3 already gives you that. So if you can bring in an oracle and liquidity, you can kind of just spin up the market. So as I mentioned before, the entry is lower than you might think, except for the fact that you have to stake 500K hype, which is pretty substantial. But still, the stake and deploy is very low barrier to entry. And the result is now we have like multiple deployers listing the same assets. I already mentioned S&P 500 twice, and they're on Trade.xyz, markets, and even Dreamcash. So the liquidity and traders are kind of like getting split across these venues. So what do they need to do? So each market does have its differences. They have different collateral types. USDC, USDH, USDT, and even USDE. They also have different Oracle sources as well as liquidity providers. So at the end of the day, I'd say this is just like a survival competition.
Yeah, right.
So what would they need to do to like win? Like what does it take to win, right?
Hmm.
I'd say it has to be the tightest spreads. So they'll have to list the hot assets as fast as they can. I think, I'm not sure if they already did, but then they'll need to onboard the whales and institutions directly into their platform. And one thing that Hyperliquid did well, I think, is the growth mode. So the aggressive growth modes with the reduced trading fees would actually benefit and kind of lure the people to their protocols. So if these markets kind of nail all of this, I think the best one will survive and thrive.
Yeah, only strong teams will survive. But this structure is not that different from CEX experience. On Binance, we can use USDC, USDT, and also USD1 pair. While HIP3 deployers compete each other, they can coexist in Hyperliquid. And as always, the winner will be Hyperliquid.
Yeah, the winner will be Hyperliquid, but it also depends who's the winner inside the ecosystem. But yeah, um, and yeah, that was about the competition that the protocols are having right now. And to a separate topic, we'll be talking about something the community has been buzzing about. So how do you get exposure to HIP3 growth? So right now, as of now, I'd say they were the first also. The biggest HIP3 deployer is Trade.xyz.
Right.
And I don't think they've announced any airdrop or tokenomics points program.
Yeah, sure.
I think that's, for me personally, that is a big plus because they won't be having any um, fake liquidity or like um, fake traders into their protocol, right?
Yeah, totally agree.
Uh, so some users may go to another protocol that has the airdrop or the points program. So they are looking for some alternatives. Um, I think right now, as I mentioned before, markets is one of the things that the Hyperliquid community is eyeing on due to their kinetic token.
Hmm.
So, I mean, the kinetic token has been showing strong price action recently,
Yeah.
and I believe it's because the tokenomics are designed to capture the value from the multiple revenue streams that are making.
Hmm.
And also, I believe they are doing the buybacks
Yeah,
from
they're doing it.
over 10% of HIP3 deploy share. They're also doing the 100% of builder code fees when you trade on market.xyz. And they also have like 70% from the K hype staking fee rewards, as well as I believe they're also giving 100% of Connect's validator commission to the validators. So all that I think kind of like brought back the kinetic hype, and I think the community is kind of hoping it gets distributed proportionally to the stakers holding S kinetic.
Hmm.
I mean it is a straightforward to accrue the value and value accrual mechanism that's kind of resonating with the market. But let's see who actually ends up being the winner at the end. And yeah, that's all that happened and the hottest topics from last week. We're actually seeing like besides this, I'm sure there's also explosive growth driven by the demand for traditional asset exposure, with the new competitors coming in and kind of intensifying the battle for liquidity and traders between the protocols. So I think the next few weeks are going to be very crucial in kind of determining which platforms emerges as the dominant Web3 venue. So we'll be watching closely, and we'll be back with more news next week. And that's it for this week's HyperSpace Hyperliquid Weekly News. See you guys next week.
See you next week.